The Home Run Kings had no answer for the Lady Vols pitching staff. Entering the weekend, Ohio State led the country with 143 home runs on the season, averaging more than 2 a game. But in 2 matchups with the Lady Vols, they went home with 0 home runs as the Lady Vols advanced to the Super Regionals after a 5-0 win against Ohio State in the Knoxville Regional Championship. And being able to do so with Sage Margecko in the circle, well, that just proves the point this team knew all along.
Really proud of our pitching, and you know, we're not a one-pitcher team, and you've seen that the last 3 weeks. I mean, this kid beat Ole Miss, she beat Texas A&M, and she beat Ohio State.
And the Lady Vols certainly proved that point at a championship win on Sunday. Now, Ohio State, they have very disciplined batters. They're a team that only averages about 5.3 strikeouts a game. But it was a challenge Sage Margecko was more than up for.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to start a game like this. You know, this is probably one of the biggest games, you know, taking us into supers. So it just felt good to get called on and to know that I have a job to do. So just going in there and doing what I can for the team to help us win and to keep us in a game like that. And, you know, just trusting my stuff, trusting my teammates. You know, like Karen said, it was a close game, but just trusting that, you know, we're going to get it, no matter when that came.
Only once did Ohio State have a runner in scoring position with Sage Margecko in the circle, and that makes this conversation with Karen Weekly in the dugout even more impressive.
When I was talking to her in the dugout and telling her how proud I was, she said, you know, what's kind of funny is I didn't even have my best stuff. And I said, yeah, but you had your best stuff between the ears. And that's where she's grown.
And then came the bottom of the 5th inning where the pressure got turned up just a notch when Ohio State was able to get its first and only runner in scoring position this game. And when the pressure got a little higher, it was in that moment that Sage Margecko's growth that she's had this season was truly highlighted.
The SEC is one of the best tests for postseason, and then facing our lineup, you know, every week, every few days, it does test you mentally and keeps you locked in. So just having a lot of practice, you know, putting in all the time and just, you know, really.
Sage Margecko's afternoon would come to a close after 5 innings of work, and what she did in those 5 frames was certainly nothing short of impressive. She struck out 5 batters, several of them looking, and gave up just 2 hits, a performance that reinforces that this Tennessee ball club is more than just one arm.
I loved her mental game. So Sage has electric stuff. We see it in practice. It baffles us.
Now, there were a couple of times this game where the emotion started to go up a notch and escalate just a little bit. One of those times we saw was in the 4th inning, where we started to hear Sage Margecko chants filling the stadium after Ohio State was able to get a base hit. But Sage Margecko and Tennessee were able to handle business also in that inning. And you saw even more emotion coming from Sage Margecko as she left the circle and headed towards the dugout. And it was especially after those strikeouts where she caught the Buckeyes looking that were most rewarding.
We talk about getting one out at a time and that every out's a big out. So especially when you get strikeouts looking, you know, those are big outs for us and the team, and builds a lot of momentum, especially when you catch, you know, a good team like that who doesn't take a lot of strikes looking. So it's just big moments, and celebrating those moments, bringing the momentum for the team.
Sage Margecko's performance and efforts in the circle also led to one emotional head coach in Karen Weekly. And while we didn't see any tears in the post-game press conference, the emotions were reserved for the conversation they had in the dugout after the game.
See them work as hard as they do, and Sage is a worker. It just brings you so much joy, and you get emotional when that work pays off. And you know, everything that she's worked on this year came to fruition today in the biggest moment possible for our team. So, you know, I cry at Hallmark commercials too.
And after the Lady Vols were able to get past one of the nation's best offenses in the Ohio State Buckeyes, it was a win that kind of reflected and highlighted a turning point Sage Margecko had earlier in the season.
Just putting a lot of trust in the process and trusting, you know, the work I've put in, and knowing that, you know, even on my worst days, I still have a lot to go out there and compete with any team, and just being able to go out there and do whatever it takes to compete and help my team win.
And here's a fun fact for you. The Lady Vols are just the second team to shut out Ohio State this season. The other time it happened came in a loss to UCLA back in April. We'll hear from Sophia Nugent's family coming up this week in preparation for the Super Regionals. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that conversation. I'll talk to you guys then.